So we can start. We can start.
Yes. I will send it to Mas Art WhatsApp also.
Silau, Mas.
Right.
I need to do something to show that I'm awake. I'm awake.
Okay.
What time is it now in your place, Mas Art?
It's 9 o'clock. It's okay.
Oh my God, so early. You wanna get coffee, Mas Art?
No, maybe massage.
Oh, so you're in the perfume kitchen, or what is that, Fred?
It's spring cleaning of my perfumes. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Okay. Walkie Talkie is live now. It's live now.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's try. Let's see.
Okay. So you're in the perfume kitchen, or what is that, Fred? Oh, it's echo, Komandan.
perfumes. Yeah.
It's having an echo. Okay, so it's live now. Okay.
Talkie is live now. It's live now.
Okay.
Let's see.
It's echo, Komandan, on us, the YouTube. Can you unmute the? Can you mute the YouTube version? Can you mute the YouTube? Komandan?
Yeah.
Okay. Udah di mute. Okay. So finally, thank you for everyone for make it to the Walkie Talkie. I know it's early in your Are you in Copenhagen, Fred, right now? Yeah.
No, I'm in Møn, an island where I live.
Ah, okay.
In the southeast.
Oh, I see. And then what time is it now in your place?
Oh, it's also 9 o'clock-ish.
Oh, okay. So it's early for you guys. So thank you a lot for making it on time. And I'm Gesyada from Gudskul, and also Ajeng and Omandan from Ruangrupa.
Hi everyone.
Hello everyone.
Good to see you, Reinaart and Fred. Long time no see.
Good to see you too.
Selamat siang.
The last time we met.
Selamat pagi.
Which bus terminal we met the last time?
In another room.
Another Zoom.
Different planet.
Yeah, thank you for being part of the very first installment of the Walkie Talkie. This is like the very first kickoff, and we are grateful and honored to have Fred to represent Camp and Trampoline House, and also Mas Art to represent Ook Huis. I don't know how to pronounce it. I hope I pronounce it. Okay. Ook.
Am I right, Mas?
Yeah.
Ook.
Yeah, and then we hope that in this conversation that you would share your story about your respective projects, your what you've been doing with your projects in your spaces and in the community, and then and also to talk about your relationship with ruangrupa, and how do you perceive ruangrupa? What is your relationship? And I think that's going to be the story for today that we're going to listen. Gimana Kak Ajeng? What about
Thank you, Gesyada. Yeah, maybe Andan would like to say something first, and then because he will finish after this.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for your time to join us this daytime in Indonesia. And I think it's very early in the morning in Netherlands and in Denmark, right?
Semi.
Yeah, it's 2 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock p.m. in Jakarta time, and 3 o'clock p.m. in Makassar time, where I'm now. I'm in Makassar now, South Sulawesi, about 2 hours away from Jakarta by plane. You can go also by boat. It takes I think a day. I think it takes 2 days by boat from Jakarta to Makassar by boat. Yeah. So we are going to have this walkie-talkie. Hello.
Yeah. We can hear you.
Hello.
Hello. We can hear you, Mandan. Yeah.
We are going to have this walkie-talkie sessions. So the idea of walkie-talkie is actually it's hanging out while telling stories to connect with some of our friends, where proximity doesn't refer to something geographical or physical. And this walkie-talkie, it's about stories on what it means to work and to live together. And to kick off this walkie-talkie, we are inviting two hosts, Gesyada Namora from Gudskul. She has been working on a short course program on Gudskul. It's like a manager and organizing everything. And also we have Ajeng Nurul Aini. She's a manager of ruangrupa, and then she was trained as a journalist. And then
not anymore.
Yeah, but you were trained as a journalist, but you're not a journalist anymore. And and also she has been participating in some projects, both in ruangrupa and in somewhere else. And also, what else I can say about? Oh, Ajeng is also managing a music selectors duo called Irama Mama. And then I think that this Irama Mama was in one of our guest speakers or our guest storytellers today at Ook Huis, where Reinaart Vanhoe is a co-founder. And
thank
also
you,
we have thank you, Mas. Reinaart will be introduced further by Ajeng, and also we have Frederikke Hansen, who is now in Copenhagen, Denmark. Frederikke Hansen is a co-founder and creative director of Center for Art on Migration Politics in Copenhagen and Denmark. As far as I remember, and I understand that Fred connect to Indonesian scene when he organized a project on post-colonialism issues in Nordic Island. And she will talk more about it later. And then Fred will be introduced further by Gesyada Namora. I think I will stop here and I'll give the ball. I'll hit the balls to Ajeng and Gesyada.
Yeah.
The balls.
Yeah,
the balls.
I got it.
The balls. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Kak Kandan. So maybe I can thank you also. Thank you so much for Reinaart and Fred for joining us today in our first edition of Hanging Out Walkie Talkie. Well, as Andan said before, actually this is because this is a hangout session. So, and we would like to know from this session that what is the stories of you both, the connection at the first time within in Indonesia and also ruangrupa as a specific. Maybe we can start. Well, Reinaart, you are old friends with ruangrupa, and then I remember the first time I know you is from the OK Video comedy, if I'm not wrong, in 2009. That's the first time I met Reinaart. And yeah, maybe Reinaart, you can start to, I don't know, tell the stories about you.
I can. First of all, I'm very happy to that you started the Walkie Talkie series. So I'm really happy to see it starting and see it growing. I'm looking forward to next year and have seen like 10 editions in a row. So that's great. What can I say? If you say, okay, video comedy, I have to think about, I love rock and roll, but then not with L-O-V-E, but L-A-U-G-H.
Okay.
And I think that's a summary of what ruangrupa is for me. Music connects, humor connects. If you say something in broken English, it's okay.
Always
and
best.
as long as it's something of value that we can share. And I learned a lot through that. And I have to be honest, I like time. It's really nice. Time make things happen. And friendship is now for 20 years. So it's quite shocking, partly. But we can continue maybe with Fred, or I don't know how you organize it, but I prepared last night a presentation because the first time, but we can also do once in a while some picture, that's also fine. But I remember that the first time I was in Jakarta with ruangrupa in Komplek Garuda, where Irwan and Tita are residing at this moment, that I was happy to be invited in Indonesia, a place I have never heard about and had no connection with. So I was really eager and curious to know what you guys were doing there. So I just didn't think about bringing my own work to show. So I had nothing with me to show what I was doing. So I thought maybe it's good to, for one time, to show what I'm doing in like tangible way. But that's my 2 experiences of Jakarta I can share.
If you want to share something, it's also okay actually. Pictures or anything related to your stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we can blend in.
Yeah.
But so you know, I have something that I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mas Art, I know that you have wrote at least 2 books about Indonesian art collective. First is the From Alternative Space to Also Space in 2016, and also the Also Space From Hot to Something Else in 2014. And also in those 2 books, you propose the idea of GLIP, the globally embedded art practice. And then I haven't found the book yet, and I hope I will after this. But from what I read is that you talk about that how Indonesian artists work from an understanding that they are organically and inevitably connected to various networks, whereas Western artists tend to proactively seek out and connect to networks from an individualist position. And my curiosity is that how much you think Indonesian art collective is better than most Western collectives, and how do you find the fondness of Indonesian art collective?
It's indeed a very good question, and you can question that position, of course. And the grass is always greener at the other side. I agree, but sometimes also the other side helps you to look at your side and helps to understand what you are doing and how you are doing it. So for me, you should see the book as an exercise in making over 20 years, something that I want to share with myself because I'm always unclear. And I do that through some Indonesian art practices. And I want to share it with a younger group of people from Indonesia and from the Benelux here. So that was my departure. And I mostly write about ruangrupa because it starts from a friend's relationship that you learn from each other. So some say it's a research book, but it's more talking with and about friends. And in the 3rd chapter, I deliberately choose to describe collectives and individuals, because it's not a collective practice, is not only about a collective doing things, but can also be an individual doing things. And we know the example of Wowo, Walk the Rock, or Muriono. That is also a kind of collective practice. But what I think is important to take from a certain period of time of Indonesian art practice that I know, because that's mostly from Jakarta and Yogyakarta, is the awareness of that we are together in this. So what I take from it is that if you do art projects, you are not you don't need to distance you as a critical observer, but I would say try to be always connected to the topic that you bring forward. My broken English is also broken. That you bring forward. So I think that's one important thing that that is brought forward, and the issue of quality, to be too critical, like popular culture is good enough to start a talk because that's something we share, or that language is something we share. And even if it's Disney or FIFA Pro, even if we dislike that kind of world, it's a start. So that's what I can tell you.
I also have a question. Actually, I read your book, and somehow I feel like whoa, it so enlightened me. Somehow, like, okay, because you really like have describe very well what is ruangrupa and how it works and how it's connected with the community and the practice and so on. In your book, you found, or you have a model called how to say it, GLIP, locally embedded art practice. Can you tell more about it? Because in your book, you also said that in 2009 you have a residency program in Beijing for half year, and that's like the first idea to make the space, and also you turn it into the exhibition, and how it connected with the model that you make.
I have to say it's an idealized way of how I see an art practice and how I look to ruangrupa. We all know that it's an idealized way, but it's a way to talk. And I think it took me some effort and energy to describe it in an extensive way. I'm not a producer like art producer, or I don't make many big sculptures or something. But for me, this book feels as making a sculpture, to make it as tangible as possible and experienceable as possible. And that's it. For me, it's a kind of making a sculpture. And then with terms, it's always tricky because, like, if I did some workshops or interviews or public presentations to write a book, I said it will be about also space, and then everybody says, no, I don't fit to also space. It's not me. You invented. It's not us. So it's always tricky, these words. But for me, also space comes from a book that I read in the end of the 90s, I think, by Marc Auger, if I'm not mistaken. And the name is, or the title of the book is Non-Place.
Non-place, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of works at the time were about the periphery of the city, the border of the city, where there's almost a kind of no man's land, like an airport or industry zone, parking lots, like an in-between. But I always felt uncomfortable with that term, because I thought they are very significant places. These places tell a lot. And in my understanding of language, non-place means there's like a not so interesting place, or like a residing place. And the people were also talking about hanging in airports, that these hubs were kind of empty places, but they are very significant places. If you unlike them, then there's like world power or there's a lot of meaning in these places. So I always felt uncomfortable. And suddenly I thought, like, these are also places instead of non-places. They also have existence and big meaning. That's where the word comes from. And then I had also a problem here in my context, Benelux. I grew up in alternative spaces, had a lot of possibilities to benefit from being able to experiment and to show, which I really am grateful and appreciate. But I think I just came behind the punk period or the squatting period. So these places, these alternative places, were actually already kind of service places for artists to experiment and to play around, criticizing society or whatever, of being alternative, but actually it only talks to their inner community. So I also started to think, like, alternative, what does that mean? And if there's interesting places and they call themselves, like, we have valuable or interesting IDs, but why should we call them alternative? We can say they're also meaningful and important places. The first time I tried this title out was in 2009 in Beijing. But then it was still actually a lot artists for art. So in the Also Space book, I turn it to next interpretation that it's more talking and learning to talk again with people, a different kind of people, like your neighbor. It starts just with your neighbor, and building together that we build on a vision of a possible world, and not only artists are good in that, but different kind of people are good in that. So how to build together is more important for me than how to criticize society. Because as Gingi from Jatiwangat says, we lost, there's nothing to do, but we have ourselves, so we can share energy, and we have to refine energy with our neighbors and other kind of practices. That's where it comes from. And globally is, yeah, a stupid kind of play as well. And it's also important for me, but it's like gleep, globally embedded art practice. It's like, yeah, it's like leap, a jump, but gleep like a poor wordplay. But your local issue is as well a global issue, and vice versa. So it doesn't matter that you start like just with your neighbor and start to talk. That's enough.
Mas Art, I think one of the pictures that can describe your relationship with ruangrupa or with Jakarta is that I find these pictures that Mas Ade Darmawan has in his house, that you and Ade laughing together so genuinely, so purely. I don't know if Fred has seen that, but that pictures is I think it sort of like describe the relationship. And I was wondering, what were you guys laughing about at that time in that pictures? Yeah. And especially like you've been also making many collaborative projects with ruangrupa, and when you bring the students from Willem de Kooning for Jakarta 32 degrees, I think that was also my first time in Jakarta 32 degrees. And yeah, but so the first question is, what were you laughing with at that time, and how do you and then like how do you maintain your relationship with the collective in Jakarta?
We are laughing. I think I'm the lucky one that can laugh. Because when I came to ruangrupa, I was very picky, and art should be like this and like that. And I think the people in Jakarta that I met at the time welcomed me without any preconception or with any like stupid guy, or your jokes are not funny, or your idea about art is maybe a bit weird. So everything is at first it's like you're welcome, no matter what it is. And I'm very happy to be able to sit next to Ade and make a joke about each other, that he is stupid, that I'm smart, but that doesn't solve anything for us. It doesn't matter to be smart or stupid. And I think that's, or I'm stupid and he's smart. I mean, it changes all the time. So I think in that picture, I don't know where it comes from, but it's, let's say it's my gratitude to be able to have met you, I think. Yeah. And why I like to, or how it came that we maintain a friendship is that what I value the most is open talk throughout your art practice. So you have, or I experience that a lot of artists have their practice and build it in a certain kind of pathway or road, which is fine. But often it's, the language is stuck, or you cannot openly discuss, openly talk. And throughout our friendship, it's always an open talk. And sometimes I join, and sometimes I just hang around, and I don't need to profile. We don't need to prove to each other. There's no like agenda or whatever. And the weird thing is that people didn't believe I was going to Jakarta. People thought in the holidays, because I have my job at the school, and in the school holidays, once in a while I came to Indonesia, and people thought I was going to Bali, to the beach, seeing girls, whatever. So they never trust me, but I was in that kind of city with a lot of dust and at the Gojek with like dust of the Koperasi bus. And only like 18 years later, people started to be serious, and our director of school says like, yeah, I know these people who run Documenta. We work together with them. Yeah, I think just the total openness of sharing and accepting with our defaults and sometimes our quarrels as well. It's part of friendship. I don't know if I answered the question. But I shared something which I would share if I was in a warkop.
For sure. This is the warkop talking, you know, like.
Yeah.
Warkop talking.
Warkop talking. Yeah, I think the idea of openness and also working together somehow will also embedded in your personal practice and your projects. Like I read about cracker intelligence, where you make a fictive cooperative and exercising how to make use of intelligence of all people working and volunteering in I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, but Bangkierstuki. Maybe, yeah. Maybe you could also share about the projects and also the speculative projects. So the idea about exercising and collecting people together has been a big part in your projects.
Yeah, maybe I can share the screen. And then I can go to. You see it, or?
Yeah, we can see it.
Page. Is it total screen or is it partly screen?
Total screen, full screen.
Okay,
we can see the window options, window buttons, but that's okay, I think.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I will go to the Bangkierstuki, but this was my first picture. It's my neighbor in Rotterdam, or my former neighbor. And once I had a invite to show or to make a presentation in the Boijmans Museum, one of the 3 most important contemporary music museums in the Netherlands. And I had no time, but I thought I need to use this space. So I continued the talk I actually had with my neighbor. And I asked a student to make some pictures, and this was in the museum as well. And he's very proud of his bird.
Can you repeat?
Fat.
I forgot the name. And he is at Ramadan at this moment as well. Oh yeah. In the museum, I proposed to that visitors could wear a hijab, male or female. It didn't matter. So the idea of the museum was just to continue my talk I had with some friends nearby me, and Abdul is my neighbor, and we sometimes talk about religion or Islam. In the running team, I have often talks with Hussein, and a friend of mine. She is converted. She is also artist, but she's converted to Muslim. So whenever you talk about Islam here in this country, it's often mostly related with danger. So I thought, like, let's have another kind of talk. So I thought it was a funny idea to wear the hijab, but of course it's just a funny idea. So we tested with the imam, and we had a talk, and it was okay. And then I had to talk with other people, and we produced it together. So here you see some friends wearing hijab and walking through the museum. And we collaborated with the museum on showing some artworks of themselves that relate to me kind of to Islam. Like this is a work of François Morellet. Like he tried to erase the hand of the artist and so on. So let's go to the Bunkerstuki, the Poland Krakra Intelligence. The title of the exhibition was The Problem with Value, and about art work and art labor. But I thought the problem of value starts actually at the entrance of a museum or art space. People who are at the reception, often curators don't talk with them, but actually they are the intelligence of the institute, because they're the people come in at first. So they sense and observe and understand how people dress, how people behave, how they go to, how they take paths, how they enter or not enter. So they read sometimes better the museum. So you need to value that aspect much more. So I thought, let's pay one of these reception people the same amount of money as the curator, and have at that way also a say in the program. But as stupid as I am, and it's really shameful, but that's okay to do projects. I learned a lot from this project and from working with Jatiwangi Art Factory last 2 summers, or at 17, 18, is that, for example, I can make a joke about raising the income, but the income of a curator in Poland is very low. And it's even, and if you look at the minimum wage or minimum income in Holland compared to Poland, it's it's insane. You see the orange color, that's the minimum wage in or minimum income in Holland, and Poland is below the middle. So if you talk about income or like paying somebody, then you're like already, your joke or your idea is already like ridiculized by this reality. So I came to understand, which I shamefully didn't know, the idea of the two-speed of Europe, East Europe and West Europe, different income, different kind of attention. So it's good to do sometimes these projects that you shame yourself, but you came to understand the things. But of course, I do believe in the value of older workers in the museum. So there was 2 things that I wanted to address in this show. Is first a collective intelligence, that all people working at the place have an important say, and that's also one of the aspects of also space, that everybody can be part of the program. And what I sometimes hear from ruangrupa is that you don't know whose idea it was, that plan that you did. Like you forgot who says something. And I think it's important for institutes to operate like that as well. Cleaners, reception people, designers, curators, artists, writers should be able to be part of the program. So that's one thing, to value that. And another thing, another moment is that the idea of public institutions who are funded by government or partly by government are also in a tricky situation sometimes. In Poland, a lot of funding and measurements are built to serve a kind of family program, or like a Catholic family program. I cannot explain it well enough now, but all funds go into that direction. So it often limits public institutions or public funded institutions. So I thought it's also important to see that shrinking space. It's a term that I found out, an existing term, that art institutions it may be good to think of distributing exhibitions also in people's home, so that you extend the rooms of a museum into informal places that in times of problematic times, that you can also continue the program in people's houses, so that the museum is not only in the formal building, but also distributed through the city itself. So that's what I tried to do. I tried to work together with the reception people, and from the reception people to find houses where we could extend the museum. And I failed completely because I did not go there enough. I didn't familiarize there enough. Curators did not know how to talk to the reception people. So I should have done this project over a period of 3 years or something. So I give sometimes a lecture to students about this, how I failed in I think 7 steps.
It's amazing to share. Thank you, Mas Art.
Yeah, and I deliberately designed this sticker, which is a sticker, poorly, so that other people could say like, no, I will make it, but everybody liked it already at first hand. So that was a mistake as well.
Okay, thank you, Mas Art, for sharing the fail story also with us. I think now I would like to hear from Fred. So back in 2017, I went to Copenhagen, and then because I went to Copenhagen, Ruangrupa members told me to visit camp, and at that time I delivered coffee for Tony. I met Tony Olaf Nilsson at that time. Unfortunately, I didn't meet you, but while waiting, I was walking around trampoline space, and what struck me and what I remember the most is that there is a poster. It shows pictures of I think a Syrian man or a Syrian man, and then there is text that said that I want to make a living, but I don't know how to make shawarma, and that just really struck me. And I think some sort of like capture what camp or trampoline house is doing. And at that time, I think it was I visiting the exhibition of We Shout and Shout, but No One Listens, and the title is really struck me in that time. And what my curiosity is that what is the method, or what is the way that trampoline, or that you dig, that you are able to dig such story in camp and in trampoline house? Yeah.
Sorry, can you repeat? How are we able to dig
such story, and then bring up such story from various people all over the world in that you invite, that you highlight in trampoline house or in camp? Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe I should tell a little bit about what it is.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and maybe I start with Trampoline House. Trampoline House started as an art project, primarily led by an artist called Morten Gold, who is the partner in privately and work-wise with Tone Olaf Nielsen, whom you met. And they were working with a group of art students and asylum activists, creating something they called the Asylum Dialogue Tank in 2 different camps, in 2 different asylum centers in and around Copenhagen at that time. Long story short, they were addressing the Danish asylum system and what is flawed with it, and how to counteract in a way. And they did a long series of talks and also reading of texts, unfolding like a gampens, what is a camp, really slowly, and started to create a common discourse. And what they found out was that, well, there were many things, but people are rendered poor. They're rendered speechless, or you shout and shout, but no one listens. So you can talk, but can you reach an ear? That's the question. And people are rendered passive. In the Danish asylum system, you're not allowed, while you wait for your case to be processed, or you wait if you've been rejected, if you're waiting to be deported, you're not allowed to work or train. You're not allowed to live outside of the camp unless it's a long process of application. So yeah, you're poor, you're voiceless in a way. Or no, you can't be heard, and you're passive. So to counteract that, they decided to start what became Trampoline House, kind of a space of exception to the space of exception you find yourself in the camp, that is, inside the country that you found yourself in, but you're not on the inside of the society. So Trampoline House came into being, I think it's 12 years ago, as first as a pilot project, and it was a success. They tried out with different workshops and classes and flea markets and different activities, and were able, based on this experience, to raise enough funds to start a house. A house with a very diverse weekly program, a house that could afford to pay tickets for people to come from the camps to the center of Copenhagen. It was in the neighborhood Nurul at that time. And many camps are far away from the city. And if we have time, we can also talk about this, because it's part of a very conscious policy to keep people away from culture. I think that is a fair analysis. But Trampoline House was able to bring people to the house, and there's a formalized relationship. You can do praktik, it's called, or internship in the house. So they built up over the years an enormous network of asylum seekers, migrants, regular migrants, irregular migrants, people with status, refugee status, and also a lot of other interns, people who somehow sympathize with migrants and refugees, and maybe are also in opposition to the state policy, or if you want, the state racism that is in play in Denmark. So a lot of people meet in Trampoline House, and it's quite intense. It's quite hectic. There's also counseling, legal counseling, medical counseling. So to answer your question, it's a really broad base of people that gather in Trampoline House. Now Tone and I We have been working together since 2005. Maybe I'll tell that story in a little bit, because there's also, I mean, the question of how I met ruangrupa is really also the question of how I met Tone. So it's a good one. It's a good story, and we're storytellers, right? So
Yes,
Tone
please.
and I have been working together since 2005, and our first project was the one that you were referring to, called Rethinking Nordic Colonialism, a post-colonial exhibition project in 5 acts. It's a long title, but that was the whole title. We have for about 10 years been engaging Nordic colonialism, the history, the neo-colonialisms, the decolonial work done in the region, and also addressing kind of a blind spot at that time in post-colonial studies that was looking at north-south relations, but not so much north-north, like inner Nordic colonialism. So yeah, we had been working for 10 years on engaging Nordic colonialism and the way that it's been repressed and romanticized, and how it doesn't sit very well with the idea of Scandinavia as the cradle of proper social democratic values and the welfare state as a model or as a modus operandi. And we had, time and time again been concluding from our projects that, the most marginalized and the place where you see coloniality at play the most today, that is amongst asylum seekers and migrants, especially irregular migrants today. This is really where we see the legacy played out. And so when Tone was already involved with creating Trampoline House, and Trampoline House was becoming a big success, it was outgrowing its house in a way. They had like an old supermarket in Nurul, like I think 200 square meters, tiny space. I think I remember it without windows for classes, and it was really time for them to find a bigger house. This is back in 2013. And so Tone and I got together and schemed and said, let's try to open a room for that. This is what we called it. That was the working title: Room for Camp Life Analysis. And Trampoline House, one of the activities or one of the spaces in Trampoline House is the house meeting that takes place every Tuesday, where it's kind of like the house's parliament. Everyone has a say. The way that the administration, the politics of the house are driven, laid out and discussed. And it's also it's a place where micropolitics and the big politics meet and are discussed in relation. So anyhow, Tone and I, we went to the house meeting, like several in a row, and presented the idea. And yeah, we had to convince people that it would be a great idea to open a small international art center focusing solely on questions of displacement, flight, migration, asylum, in the heart of the new Trampoline House. But luckily, we succeeded in convincing people. And so, and we also managed to raise some funds from the Danish Arts Council to build walls and create this tiny space. As it is, it's really just, I think it's like 15 square meters black box, and like a 30 square meter white cube. I mean, now they're red as a tomato because that's much more fun to have a red cube. And then the office. Yeah. So it's really tiny, but we've been blessed with a lot of attention, a lot of visitors, a lot of goodwill, not least from artists who have accepted to show in such a tiny space and with such tiny budgets. We've really been blessed. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question somehow.
Thank you, Tony. I know it must have been difficult, like to maintain a lot of people coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, and different stories and different struggles. But I'm also curious, like, is there any story that become the main challenge in making exhibitions and conducting projects in camp itself? Like maybe the logistic problem or like the Danish government?
Yeah, no, maybe you would think that it's bridging, all these different cultures and languages and temperaments and whatnot. But that's where, art helps us, and especially performance art that has maybe not taken place inside the two galleries, but has been in the big space of Trampoline House, where the two worlds kind of meet. So that the main problem has been money, and money is of course flowing when politics approve of what you do, and so there's been it's been a struggle, and we have been very close to closing for good, I think 3 times. It's kind of like a lot of people, a lot of funders and institutions find it's great that we're there, like the more progressive or pro migrant ones, but they don't dare invest their money in such a project. And then there are those who
why they are not interested. I mean, that's if they are pro migrant, that would be the most logical things to do to support.
Yeah, but I mean, there have been different arguments. One is that we're working also with asylum seekers, and asylum seekers are not allowed to work and earn a wage, but we found other ways of kind of remunerating or helping people, so it's worthwhile for them to work as a guide or a host or a technician in camp. So one argument from some foundations has been like, we can't work with people who don't have a social security number. We can't support them, but I mean, we staff have social security numbers, like the landlord has social security number. There are a lot of things that cost money where they could invest in you know what I mean. So and other arguments have been that if only you hadn't put politics in your name, like Camp Center for Migration Politics, then we could have supported it. And we know that, of course, art is always political. Migration, of course, is political. But we are an apolitical foundation. It's in our statutes that we can't support politics. And others have said, it's party political, without naming, but I know which party they're talking about. No, but I mean, it's not. We're just looking at the different interests. We're looking at the structural causes for migration and displacement, and also for the structural causes for the regime of assimilation and integration. So the main challenge has been to fund the space.
And regarding the regarding camp, coming in September, you're gonna publish a new book that camp status 6 years of engaging art on migration politics, and then the description said the book looks back at camp unique production of migration, engage exhibitions, events, publication, and education programs from 2015 to 2020, and reflects on its methodologies and conclusion. So, do you want to talk about the book? What can we expect in the book? And yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of an exhibition folded into a book. We were supposed to do an exhibition, but then Corona came. So the idea was to make a timeline in all three spaces and then organize our archive around that timeline, and making kind of excursions, or just vectors or arrows to what happened concurrently in the Mediterranean, in Denmark, in terms of migration and flight. So we're trying to fold that into a book, and we right now we're working on a short text, just looking back and telling our story, and it's very gratifying. It's fun. But we're also including an interview we did recently, for a scientific periodical, I think. Was it a book anthology? Two Danish scholars who they're actually looking at the Vesa and his platform concept and documenta, and using camp as an example of their, to show their hypothesis or test their hypothesis. That's quite an interesting context, of course, now that I happen to be working with you guys for documenta. But anyhow, we've clipped out the chapter on camp and reproducing that in the book. And we had a conversation recently with Nurul Kadim from Paris, because she's been looking into moral dilemmas of research and art on migration. Just to mention one of the main problems, maybe, scholars from the global north making careers on the backs of people from the global south migrating, right? Whether as artists or as scholars. So yeah, it was a super interesting discussion or talk, and that is going into the book as well. And then it's just listing all the people that we've worked with and what we've achieved, like what were the exhibitions, what were the visitor counts, and these kind of things. So it's just kind of doing status as a small independent art space with a very specific yet global thematic. Hopefully it's interesting to certainly, like, people who are engaged in migration one way or the other, but also to the art world somehow. Maybe there's some people who can mirror themselves in trying to create a space.
Yeah, and then it reminds me in the intro of the exhibition of We Shout and Shout But No One Listens, Art from Conflict Zones, back in 2017. You and Tony wrote that the exhibition will debate about what has caused indifference to certain of the world's conflict and victims, and what role of visual representation plays on this. And I think it's interesting idea that it also gravitates on the visual language and the visual representation, and how is this has become the focus on camp, which is I think it's interesting to the debate has been about.
Yeah, well, the exhibition wasn't originally planned. We had, right from the beginning, also because of having to apply for funding, we had conceived of a first exhibition series that we named Migration Politics, looking at the movement from the moment of displacement or the different forms of displacement to, crossing borders and getting into the asylum system and having your case, judged and your original reason for displacement being judged, to see if it is a valid asylum claim. So we were looking at this entire cycle and also how people who are rejected and sent out of the country back home, which turns out is not the same home, or there is no home in many, many cases. So people start the cycle again. They live in a constant diaspora, like a diaspora of deportation. Anyhow, we were looking at this this whole cycle in Migration Politics, the first exhibition series, and then in Trampoline House, during conversations, but especially at the house meeting, people were addressing how we meaning those of us with social security number, exactly how many of us would color our Facebook profile, blue, white, and red after Charlie Hebdo. I didn't, but many did. Just as an example of how we visualize this relationship and this grievance or grieving. But at the very same time, I remember this in particular. One of the people who really engaged himself in camp from DR Congo said, there were just 2,000 people killed in DR Congo, and no one reacts, no one changes visual appearance for this. And so this discrepancy, we thought, okay, we need to address who do we grieve, who can we grieve, what is the role of the visual and art, journalism, etc. What is the role in making something grievable? So so it was kind of a surprise exhibition. It became, I think, both Tona and I, it's kind of one of our favorite exhibitions ever that we've done together. Yeah.
Why did it become your favorite? Yeah.
It was visually stunning. It was very moving. And it's still working on us, the question is actually quite difficult to answer in a way. We just had, I think it was also, sorry, it was also this, at this moment, we formalized our guide education talking about art. I'm a little distracted because my cat is killing a mouse as I speak. Oh, poor thing. I hope you can't hear it.
God.
Can you hear it?
No.
Well, I'll let nature do what nature needs to do. So anyhow, talking about art is an 8-week workshop where it's a self-organized workshop for users of Trampoline House. It's still
I can hear it.
I think I hear something.
I think I heard something.
Yeah. Something happened.
Well, here's the moral question. What is more important, Walkie Talkie or the mouse?
The mouse, I think. The mouse.
You should check.
I should check.
And so
Oh my God. Oh my God. This is an odd icebreaker, or like this is an odd break, you know, like a morally questionable break to have. Do you have?
It's a nature breaker.
It's a nature. The food chain, the natural selections. It's crazy. Do you have a pet, Mas Art?
Excuse me?
Do you have a pet, Mas Art?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't have.
How is the mouse situation?
Well, I don't know where I don't know where it is, but the cat is outdoors now. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Should I continue?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, please.
Using the analogy of the mouse.
I think it's probably lying under a piece of furniture somewhere. Oh, and there's an open window now. The cat is back. I'll ignore it. Talking about art is an 8-week workshop that is self-organized. So people from the Trampoline House community, they organize their own education as guides with an aim to write the menu. I need to cough. They with an aim to write the manuscript of the next camp exhibition collectively. So they go to see museums and how they disseminate exhibitions, and maybe also they've set up meetings with the guides and educational department leaders. They've organized lectures, people who like curators and artists to come and train with them. And so they train themselves to become guides and talk about art, but also talk about the political system, and it could even be their cases, you know, that they can use the art to enable themselves to talk about these issues. And really that is also what people come to learn about in the exhibitions. So what did I start talking about? Talking about art. What was your question again?
It's okay, you're the storyteller. We can go along with you. Yeah.
What's happening behind me now?
Yeah. We're coming to maybe this is like the conclusion. We don't really have a conclusion, but
We don't need conclusion.
we don't need conclusions, yeah. But yeah, maybe. But I haven't heard from Fred, like how did you encounter ruangrupa or Gudskul before?
Yeah, well, it doesn't go all the way back like reinaart, but it goes a long way back. And I was kind of expecting reinaart to wear a t-shirt that would express his relationship. So I'm wearing a cardigan from 2006 from Iceland, from when we were doing this Rethinking Nordic Colonialism project, to honor my relationship with ruangrupa, and you, Reinaart, how you use Zoom. I was saying that the story of how I met ruangrupa is really also the story of how I met Tone, because back in 2004, I was living in Berlin at the time, and I went to Denmark to hang out with a friend from America, and she was the head at that time of the Sackler Center for Feminist Art in Boston, New York, in Brooklyn. The Danish Art Council wanted to make a dinner for her, and so they invited sort of the Danish feminists of the Copenhagen art scene. And I happened to meet Tone, like really meet Tone at that dinner. We were sitting across from each other, and we had belonged to the Copenhagen art scene for years, but never talked. You know, it's a tiny scene, but it manages to have fractions, or it did at that time. And it was a time in the mid-90s when we first were, supposed to meet but didn't, with a lot of different alternative art spaces. And for some reason, we just, I don't know, belonged to different ones that didn't communicate. So at this dinner in 2004, we were sitting together talking, and she had just returned from Indonesia, and she was super enthusiastic about these people she had met, and she was talking about it, and she was being super open and friendly. And I was kind of like, why didn't I know that she's super kind and friendly? And she was like, we had a super great conversation about our work and how, like she's been working around issues of racism and democracy, and I've been working around feminist queer issues, and kind of how our practices would dovetail. And she's like, oh, we need to do something together. Let's go to Indonesia and do something together. And I was like, oh, sounds good. And then I forgot all about Indonesia, but not completely, because when we did Rethinking Nordic Colonialism, we invited Ade, Indra, and Reza at that time to do a project in Tórshavn, the capital of the Faroe Islands. And so first time I met them was in Turkey, at the Biennial, the Istanbul Biennial. And then they came to the Faroe Islands, and I remember that they did a project in various schools with buttons, your welcome buttons, and then T-shirts and lots of different merchandise. And I was very busy with the production, the installation of the exhibition and all of this, so I didn't follow too closely. But all of a sudden they knew everyone, in and around Tórshavn. And they were really the ones creating the atmosphere. They were almost just as much hosts as Tone and myself. And it became, so you remember that the subtitle of the exhibition was an exhibition, post-colonial exhibition project in 5 acts. The one in the Faroe Islands was Act 3, and we would dub it the Act of the Taurus because it was in spring, and I had a birthday, and Reza and Indra both had birthdays, and just to give you an idea of how it became very, like the human scale, like the everyday scale, like the brain is not the only interesting organ we have. We also have a heart, and it's quite interesting. And this whole energy is something that I find super ruangrupa. And we need to fast forward to 2016 before we work with them again. But they've always been you guys now, right? For me in the beginning was very much these 3 people, but ruangrupa has always been in my heart, and so in 2016 we work again together. The first exhibition in camp, the inaugural opening night, we did a fashion show with a Rwandese fashion designer, Daddy De Maximo, called it The Secret Talk, and we were able to do that again for Sunspec. So we did it in the park in 2016. Unfortunately, not at the opening weekend, because then I would probably have gotten to know you. But I did meet Reinaart there for the first time. And Reinhard, I'm curious because the other day we had a nongkrong with Trampoline House, so Tone and Morten, and you were like, oh hi Tone, oh hi Reinhard, old friends. Is it from Indonesia? Is it from this workshop she came home and told me about in 2004? Or how do you know her?
It's a luxury, I have to say, and but I met Tone in 2005 in the Istanbul Biennale where ruangrupa was participating. So I know Tone from meeting with ruangrupa.
That's funny because I was there too, but we didn't meet really. Maybe I was taking care of the baby. Tone was there with a tiny little baby, no?
I remember her with the buggy and the baby, and we sit in a side street of Istiklal Chedesi and go into the supermarket. That's something I remember. Yeah.
All right, I was just curious.
Yeah. But I can also share that I learned, I think, from Indonesia that T-shirts can also be a tool for expression and sharing things, or be an art tool. And this T-shirt is related to Indonesia. I got it from our dear friend, Mr. Hauritsa.
Oh.
He is watching now.
So you are also wearing something attuned to ruangrupa.
Yes, I think with a T-shirt or with a trouser, you can really express and communicate with people. It's a very good tool to get in contact or to show gratitude or appreciation. And through the first workshop that I did, printing in urban space or something like that, in 2000 with ruangrupa, I found the tool of T-shirts, which is a big important part of. Like this T-shirt, I had for 3 weeks enormous tooth pain, and I wear this to go to the hospital or the doctor, dentist, to get some more energy for myself, like to be more colorful and to be like more strong. Yeah.
Fred, from what I know, you had a hat that have a text of Lumbung, yeah?
Yeah. It's I had it made as a gimmick for the press release. Sorry, not the press release, the press conference that we were supposed to do in Ook Huis in Kassel. And because of Corona, everything was cancelled, right? And so now I'm stuck with this hat. So I've been wearing it for the extended, never-ending assembly we're having in Zoom now. To tame my Corona hair.
Yeah, so it's funny, the 6 degree of separation, and then like you've met before in certain events, but we have that term in Indonesia called tali kasih. So sometimes I don't know how to translate context. Apa ya tali kasih?
Temu kangen. Tali kasih itu apa ya?
So it came from a TV show that often connects people that has been separated and then
for a long time.
For a long time, and then most of the times we often think exhibition, biennale, or any kind of event, some sort of like a tali kasih for the art people, like when they finally met. So maybe tali kasih, Walkie Talkie is also a tali kasih for the ruangrupa friends.
Virtual tali kasih.
Virtual tali kasih. Tali means rope, and kasih means I don't know, compassion, love. So like, so it's like binding the compassions.
So it's the same process in terima kasih?
Yeah, terima kasih is like giving the compassion and giving back. So it's kind of weird, the Indonesian language. Yeah. We don't even have genders in our language. So yeah.
Other than we have neutral and non-gender. We have these two.
What about Dutch language? I don't really know about.
The big
We
killer.
have we have
Meet the culprit.
we have kasir, not kasir, but kasir. the gentleness of giving money.
You have kasir, we have kusir, Mas. Pak Kusir.
What is that?
Kusir is the driver for the delman tuh apa ya? The
Horse cart.
Yeah.
The
Horse cart.
The horse driver. So
Kusir, Pak Kusir.
Kusir is the
Kusk in Danish.
But kusir also there's a
Kutsir.
kusir like debat kusir tuh. Apa
And
perumpamaan?
debat kusir is like a cat fight discussion. So you know, like when the debate is really like high tension and people think it's like the horse driver is riding the discussion because of everybody get whipped, everybody is like it's like crazy.
But why we use kusir ya?
I don't even know.
I think it's a Dutch word.
Maybe, maybe.
Kutsir is the driver of the koets, the old wagon, the horse and the cabbage. Yeah, that's the driver is the kutsir.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Kusir. Okay.
So, Fred, any of the perfume bottles you would like to tell us and show us?
Oh,
Which collection you have?
yeah. I don't know where to begin. I think somewhere in South America there's a tradition of honoring all the things you didn't become, like all the professions also you didn't pursue, and my childhood dream was to become a perfumer, like and one of the driving forces behind it wasn't perfume at all. It was that there were no women doing it. And so I was like, oh, then I need to go there, like, oh, it's difficult. Oh, I need to go there, yeah. So it didn't happen, obviously. But I do have a passion for scent. I never had a lot of money, so I'm kind of stingy in a way, but it's really, a lot of it is really nice niche perfume, so I spend all my money on perfume and food, I guess, when it comes down to it. And so so I'm kind of stingy with it. I don't use it like royally. I'm just trying to keep it. And then some of these are like 20 years old, and some of them are off, but they might go off, but it's a new smell and it's interesting too. And so I give myself a bottle every April for my birthday.
So you have vintage smell.
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
You were in April. Are you an Aries or Taurus?
Taurus.
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 Like Taurus.
So
Like
many
the
Taurus in Nurul.
Yeah.
What about you, Reinaart?
Reinaart doesn't have zodiac.
I thought I was in the middle of Virgo and Lion.
Why not, sir?
But all signs are going to the Virgo.
So
you are more related. You relate more to the Virgo forecast, maybe.
I did one reading and and also friends did a reading, and I thought I like to play with the thing that I'm between, but all signs are pretty much Virgo.
Are you happy with Virgo?
It's too big of honor to be Virgo for me.
Okay.
I'm not so disciplined.
So we have 2 earth signs on this walkie-talkie. Virgo
about
and
you?
Taurus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
What are you?
what?
What are you?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm Scorpio.
Scorpio.
Yeah.
Mm. And you?
And I'm a Gemini.
Mm. Like Ade? No.
Ade
no.
is a
Ade
Cancer.
Cancer.
Cancer. Yeah.
Ade is a
Yeah.
Cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me and Andan is Scorpio.
Mm.
Scary. Andan.
And
Are
then
you
is
going
here.
to? Are you going to make a walkie-talkie with yourself, so to speak? Like, are you going to tell your story as well?
I don't think that's the idea of walkie-talkie.
Why not?
Is
And I
that-
can be the host. No, why not?
We can do
Reversal walkie-talkie.
yes.
Yeah. We can do another reverse walkie-talkie.
Your cat would like to share something with us.
How to kill a mouse?
How to kill a mouse and keep the
Get
talkie.
food under Corona?
I have oh, sorry.
Yeah, Renat?
I have, if you want, still a little video because
What
all
kind of
museums
video?
open. One video I made in 2000.
Oh, okay. That's a nice way to end our talkie. Okay. Thank you. Video.
Yeah, because then at 2000 I did not bring any work with me, and also museums are opening their archive and showing their archives. So I thought it's maybe also good to show my archive, a work that I made 20 years ago, but also to show that I call myself sometimes a simple artist because I don't have a big engine to do big projects or to do a lot. And every time I have to do something, I say, okay, I'm busy, but I think ruangrupa is much more busy. So okay, I'll do it. So I have a small engine, and also can only work from myself or to learn things from myself. So to show a little bit where I come from. And this is a video clip I made in Amsterdam in 2000. And I made it, I think everything I make is like to understand better things or something, or like an open talk. I think in 99 or 98, Galatasaray won the UEFA Cup. And all city centers in Europe were like full of Galatasaray fans, like the Dam Square, the Hofplein in Rotterdam, or in Brussels, the Beurs. They were all fans of Galatasaray. I was like wondering, like, what do I think about this, or what does this? What is this kind of local pride? And that made me make this video, which is the title is 11th July, and it's the National Flemish Day. Kind of stupid day for sure, because we commemorate our win against the French in 1302. And we are proud of that being represented in a book written by Hendrik Conscience, The Lion of Flanders. And the book is written in the Romantic time, just before 1900, I think, or I think just before. So we commemorate something very fictiously, actually. But by doing this, I also had like to think like my own position and ridiculize that kind of thing and thinking aloud. But it shows also the difference of 20 years ago and where I'm now, like the Krakra collective in Poland, trying to speak more together than producing your own individual artworks. But it's sometimes nice to do. And last night I watched it again since like a long time ago. And I thought, okay, I dare to share it. It's sometimes nice to do your mix it with collective work and individual work. I should share the screen, and I hope the sound goes along. Let's see how it works. Is it full screen?
Not yet full screen.
Maybe I'll try. Full screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
already.
it's
Full
it's
screen.
5 minutes, and I hope the sound works.
Okay.
Just yell if the sound is not working.
Okay.
Boleh. It's 5 minutes.
Boleh. Boleh, Mas.
Beste vrienden, van harte welkom op deze bijeenkomst ter viering van de Vlaamse Nationale Feestdag. Feestdag van een etnische minderheid in Nederland. Onder andere door de decentralisatie van verschillende bevolkingsgroepen is het van belang dat vandaag 11 juli viering ook hier in Amsterdam kan plaatsvinden. Het is heden ten dagen niet zozeer het land zelf en zijn inwoners die kracht zijn van eenheid, maar eerder zijn karakter en dat karakter aanwezig bij zijn nakomelingen, waar deze zich ook bevinden. In de versnippering van vandaag is het van belang de eigenschappen van de persoon in een historische context te plaatsen. Is er sprake van een algemeen Vlaams karakter? Is er sprake van een al dan niet komend multicultureel karakter met een mix van Vlaamse, Belgische, Spaanse, Italiaanse, Turkse, Europese, Aziatische, Anglo-Saxische, Amerikaanse karakteristieken? En hoe karakteristiek is deze? Gezien vanuit het standpunt van nu en later. Omdat juist deze stelselsvorming zich aan het ontwikkelen is het van belang zich bewust te zijn van de karakteristieken en te kijken of die ook daadwerkelijk aanwezig zijn. En die zijn er natuurlijk ook. Er kan sprake zijn van een Vlaamse karakteristiek. En deze is belangrijk naast andere karakteristieke identiteiten in het Europese verband en daarbuiten. Het kan helpen bij het begrijpen van ontwikkelingen en te nemen beslissingen die van belang zijn voor de toekomst van een Europa, een maatschappij. Daarom, onder andere, beste vrienden, zijn we hier vandaag bij elkaar gekomen. Verzameld op een historisch hoogtepunt voor een volk dat Vlamingen heeft. Een historisch moment, onbelangrijk voor de rest van de wereld, maar als het uit ons uitkomt, willen we wel graag gezind zijn. We sluiten ons graag aan bij het cordon dat achter schilden en wapens erop zich willen laten gelden. En eens het positieve gevolgen is, kruipen we met de borst vooruit van onder de schilden vandaan. Tot kort daarna, op een onbewaakt moment van uitzinnigheid, een nieuwe vledering volgt. Dat we weer in alle schilden achter onze schilden sluiten. Schild en vriend, Amin, zou je kunnen zeggen. Maar laten we dit laatste even achterwege laten. Elk volk kent zijn zwakheden en zijn onbewaakte momenten. We zijn gedwongen geweest doorheen de geschiedenis onze aardheid niet recht voor de raad naar voren te brengen. En dat heeft ons bepaald karakter meegegeven, die ons eigen maakt en op een of andere manier bijzonder. Ons relativeringsvermogen en nuchterheid is bijvoorbeeld een heel belangrijke eigenschap, evenals het omzeilen van regels wanneer bij een situatie in meerdere belang dat noodzakelijk blijft. Het zogenaamde arrangeren is niet alleen iets waar we ons moeten voor schamen, maar ook iets om trots op te zijn. In deze verorganisering van de maatschappij is het belangrijk af en toe de kern van de ziel op te zoeken. En dan zien dat de afkomst ervan een belangrijke rol speelt. Het leert je onder andere jezelf als persoon beter te begrijpen. Al bevinden we ons buiten de grens van onze grond, toch is het goed om ons hier het moment van 11 juli viering te laten plaatsvinden. Ik zou graag eindigen met een gedicht en daarna het glas heffen op Vlaanderen en de rest van Europa en allen die daarin aanwezig zijn. Vlaming, hier ben ik. Strijd voor mijn taal, mijn uitdrukking, mijn wel. We zullen het duur verkopen met wel. Vlaming, Vlaming, hier ben ik. We breken de lans en gaan te strijden. Strijden voor ons land, de uitdrukking ons hand. Vlaming, hier ben ik, we zijn op weg. We stormen fors naar voren, zoals slachten vrijwel ons toonde. Weigeren doen we niet, al houden we ons staande langs de Franse riet. Vlaming, Vlaming, hier ben ik, ontkrijgt me niet. Al wordt ons geest gedompeld in een sluitse deel in holen, ons hart wordt nooit ontstolen. Vlaming, hier is ons hart geboren, geworteld, genest, leed genest. Dat krijgt me niet, al worden we weggepest. Geen stap verzet niet, heilig is de wortel, kerk van onze aan, verankerd is ons ziel, verschepen kan me niet. Ons is ons en ons kalm. Laten we daarom.
Luidig. Je zet het lager.
Wat zeg je?
Je zet het geluid lager.
Oh. Yeah, it's going back in time.
Going back in time.
Wow.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
okay.
How old were you in that video?
20 years ago. That's where we start to meet each other.
Ah, I see. Oh yeah, I forgot that we get actually a shout out through the YouTube comment. There is Ruru Radio. I think Omicha said nice T-shirt, Mas Art, and then Ade said nice collection, Fred. Maybe to the perfume. And Ameng said lovely cardigan, Fred. And then she also remembered about Istanbul 2005, and that's the comment section. And also Farah Wardani Wawah is saying her salam to Mas Art. I will return salam balik. And then yeah, the tali kasih, walkie talkie tali kasih talk show. And then Ajeng, you want to make conclusion or
No.
goodbye?
I don't want to say goodbye. I just want to say see you later.
Another meeting.
See you on Monday. Yeah. Yeah, well, I just maybe thank you so much once again for both of you to have this time with us, this hangout session. Hopefully we can invite or many friends can join us to the next session. And hopefully everything getting better regards our base in community in our base area. And yeah, thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here.
Hello for everybody that is
Yeah.
watching.
Hello,
Yeah.
everybody who's watching. Thank you so much. Anybody who want to order coffee still available? I will send
Oh,
ready
that
made
would be
coffee.
lovely.
I have ordered martabak for tomorrow.
Martabak.
Okay,
Nice.
cool. All right.
Thanks to Pris Roos in Rotterdam. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
Thank
much
you.
for
Thank you
hosting.
very much.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.
Weekend.
Terima kasih
Dadah, Fred.
semuanya yang
Terima
sudah
kasih.
menonton.
Bye.
Sampai jumpa
Find the
lagi di
kutsir.
edisi berikutnya. Bye. Bye the kusir. Bye debat kusir. Bye Fred.
Bye.
Terima kasih.